Against this right back, Charlie.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on. People deluded, I'm back again. Special guest business, the athletic writer, the interview of all these players. I'm trying to be like you, man. Mr. Superstar Showtime. What are you telling them, my guy?
Honestly, it's you don't need to do that every time.
That's why I do it, my guy. Come on, man. You knew I was gonna do this.
I'm good, thanks. I hope you're doing well. I hope my mic level is all right.
Nah, you're good, my guy.
Yeah.
Everything's good, man. How you been, man? Happy New Year's and all of those things to you and yours, man.
Yeah, you too as well. I know we've been trying to do this for like a month now, and like honestly, when I was ill for that week, it was just so annoying. And now the cough's kind of lingered. I think it's happened with so many people.
Yeah,
it
you're right.
just comes back at the most annoying times. But I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good, and all your people are feeling good as well. And yeah, hopefully the people who get involved today are feeling good as well.
Come on, and obviously I know you've been here for a minute, but to those seeing you for the first time, as I said, you're Mr. Athletic Superstar interviewing the footballers and that. You know, introduce yourself, my guy.
My name's Roché. And yeah, I write about Arsenal a little bit. You may see me at a game sometimes, but yeah, I write about Arsenal, talk about Arsenal as well on podcasts like this with Deluded Gooner.
I mean, go on.
And yeah, that's me.
He's way too humble. He's way too modest. People follow him on all his Twitter and all his socials. He's doing great stuff, man. He's doing great stuff. He's achieved a lot. He's going to achieve a lot. You know, much like Arsenal with our young players, he somewhat typifies that as a young writer and things. Obviously, Arsenal's the topic. What you made of the season so far, man? I don't check the league table. Maybe you do, but it seems like it's all right, my guy.
Yeah, I know how you are on your football manager. So, I think obviously you can only say it's exceeded expectations. I think we did we talk or do a stream at the start of the year, maybe?
Yeah, we did, you know.
Or maybe it was in the summer and you asked me what my expectations were, and straight away I said top four. And I think that would have been the same for a lot of people. So to see where they've gone from the start of the season has been really encouraging, because a lot of what has been done is almost just addressing where they went wrong, especially on paper last year, when you consider first of all how they played away from home in those games against Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Southampton, Brighton as well, home and away. Those games, I think you've seen tangible kind of progress, which has been good. Yeah. But then also you've seen them build on certain themes from the back of last season. Like if we talk about Xhaka, he's been doing that attacking stuff from the back end of last season, not just this season. And Ødegaard as well, getting into those dangerous pockets even more and being more effective. So yeah, exceeded expectations, and hopefully they're able to find a few more gears for the second half of the year.
Yeah, like me, man. If someone, if we sat here in August and said Arsenal's going to do what they were going to do along with Newcastle, I'd have said either you're a fortune teller or you need your head checking out. But fortunately, Mikel Arteta, like you said, I think there's a lot more grit when things haven't gone our way. We react to mistakes a bit better. Obviously, we've put some great home form on the board, and we've taken that away from home and pulled off some great results. I mean, the goals scored, the goals conceded, the points on the tallies. You can't not praise the club collectively. You mentioned Martin Ødegaard. Is he not technically our top top goal scorer in the Premier League. Eddie and Nketiah, despite until recent being a bit part players, are joint top goal scorer. Jesus and Cole have added something. There's more adaptability. There's, we're moving towards adding more squad depth. We're just looking like a football team that we've wanted to see for years, really. And on one hand, as much as I'm praising us, I think there's several gears to go because the season isn't done, and we need to get into a territory where, you don't praise Floyd Mayweather, for example, for being consistent. It comes with the territory, or Henry for being a good footballer. So we've still got many gears to go on, man. But you kind of indirectly mentioned it about Champions League. Now, I still think Champions League needs to be the minimum. As far as we can go in the FA Cup and the Europa League, anything less than the final without knowing what's going to happen would be failure. But, some would say that we're in a title challenge, that we're in a title race. Mathematically, you could extend that to a few clubs. Do you, where do you fit into, Arsenal in a title challenge? Do the goalpost shift? Because I'm sure when Leicester won the league in that August, they weren't sitting there and talking about a league title campaign winning, but they made it happen. So where are you at with that?
Sorry, the cough's still there.
Mine, my guy.
I feel like I'm in a similar mindset to a lot of Arsenal fans in terms of not wanting to get carried away too soon. We all saw what happened last season in terms of the Champions League race, where it seemed like it was in Arsenal's hands, and then within 3 matches, they're almost clawing at that spot.
We're relying on Norwich on the last day of the season for the most optimistic of Arsenal fans. That tells you everything, isn't it?
So yeah, I wouldn't want to go too overboard. I think Champions League as a minimum is still very respectable. I don't think moving goalposts too much would help, but I wouldn't be opposed to probably saying, okay, there's an opportunity there, go for it. So that's where I think the mind is at the minute. Don't kind of look too far ahead, but also acknowledge the position you're in at the point you're at and go for it if you can.
I mean, you said it there. It's like what Wenger used to say: the past brings regret. Not that there's any much this season. The future brings uncertainty. There's no time like the present. And I'm agreeing with you. Really, I think everyone's allowed to dream in life. End of the day, you win the games. You keep doing what you're doing. Things might all work out. But like you said, Champions League, as fast as we've kind of got this, we could, not that I want to be that guy, but mathematically, it could still be lost. Everything is still up for debate. It's anything but what would be the word? Like I don't even know what word I'll be searching for. A formality would probably be it. So we just need to keep going. What individual players, since we've restarted since the World Cup, have done well for you, man? Because Eddie Nketiah has got an opportunity.
Your defense is in trouble.
Yeah, that's a banger. He needs to bring out a song, man. That's an absolute banger. Do you know the saddest thing? I was listening to that just before we came live as well, man. Absolutely,
it's so addictive. I'm surprised. So obviously, when he scored yesterday, obviously they went with the Eddie, Eddie, Eddie chant, but I was surprised they didn't bring that out the away fans.
It needs to get brought out, bro.
But yeah, obviously, if we just go with him, Eddie's been great. I think, obviously, my thoughts about him have been, I guess we'd say, well documented for the past 18 months or so, in terms of seeing from last preseason those kind of little steps that he was making in terms of his general play when he was being used as a left winger in games against, I think it was Watford and Chelsea in that pre-season. And you could see he was getting into
as well.
And you could see he was getting into certain positions and doing quite nicely. And then you don't really get to see that if he's not playing too regularly. And again, we got to see it at the back end of last season. So it's quite nice that obviously the circumstances that his chances of coming this season aren't great, but it's nice to see that he's been able to be somewhat consistent with that, with those movements. That turn that he's perfected is probably maybe too strong, but he's made that his own, I think, in terms of being able to spin away from pressure. And then we all know he's a goal scorer. He's been a goal scorer from his
from Haaland or before Haaland, probably when he was in the womb and that, man. He's got to 4 goals, really and truly, Eddie, isn't it? Really. Thanks, Chelsea, for the good Cobham talents and that.
So he's probably the one we'll start with, and then if we're going from Boxing Day Martin Odegaard has just been
Different gravy.
unreal. I think obviously people will know Smith Rowe is the guy that I look at as X factor in that Arsenal team, but I think Odegaard, almost every game you're seeing just someone who is confident and is a pure technician.
High IQ footballer for sure.
And that's what I think people probably didn't see that when he had his first loan. I remember thinking when I got to see him in the flesh for the first time, that's when it kind of clicked for me.
He's different, isn't it?
It was the Leicester game in that lockdown season where I think he came on for Smith Rowe at half time maybe. And there was this one movement he did where like I blinked and the ball was like gone. It was in the build up for Pepe's goal in that game. If people have time to go and watch that back, but that's where I kind of clocked it. And then I think when people were back in grounds, they were able to see it and actually have something tangible that they could hold on to. So it's nice that he's got more confident with that, but also obviously he's got more confident in front of goal, and I think braver in his decision making on the ball as well. You saw it at Brighton, I think, where in the first minute the ball breaks to him, and rather than his first thought being, "Oh, who could I pass it to?" his first thought is, "I'm going to drive forward into the box." So I think that's a development that I've been pleased by. And I think we all know there's probably a few other developments that can come further down the line. But I guess we'll chat about that as we go along tonight.
I mean, like you said, man, I mean, Martin Odegaard, without sounding too snooty, I do think you need kind of what you echoed with what you saw watching him in the flesh. I do think you need a certain level of understanding for football to see what he brings. But even that, he's taking it and more. I mean, obviously, you know, he could be a model. He's never going to fit the image typically of a captain in England. You know, he's not going to fly into a million tackles. But you can see why Arteta's giving him the captaincy. You can see him governing other players to help him with the press. He's always talking. You know, he strikes me as a very intelligent man, but a very intelligent footballer. Everything is based on IQ, and it's lovely that he's taken that, took it to a more consistent level, and also added goals and assists. And as much as there's not really a player you can't like at Arsenal. As much as the focus about young-ish is on the Sakas, the Martinellis, the Smith Rowes, etc. Odegaard isn't too many years older than them, and for considering we got him for 30 million, if a time comes when Real Madrid might want him back or things like that, not that I want him to go, you're in a very good position to claim top money. So Odegaard's just going from strength to strength. I do believe one day he might actually move into that Xhaka role. You kind of rob him of the individual in the final third, but I think you give the team greater impetus, if I'm completely honest with you. And one thing I've loved broadly this season is, you know, we've been on a long road with Arsenal footballers, so it's lovely when players can play their role and play a bunch of other roles. Odegaard slightly, Fabio Vieira, Zinchenko, Benjamin White, Tomiyasu, etc., etc., etc. To go back to Eddie Nketiah, I agree with everything you said. I do think, you know, not every striker is going to be good enough, and at some point you need to show people what to get behind, but they really underestimate how hard it is to really show your worth when you're not playing consistently. You know, his age that he's at, the pressure that's there, and like you said, he's bulked up physically. He's doing things off the ball which are as vital as scoring goals to a Mikel Arteta side as actually bagging. He's going from strength to strength. He's tied down in terms of contract, and he's, you know, in the starts he's played in all comps, he's only failed to bag in one of the games, and his performances have been consistent throughout. I know people always look to beat Eddie Nketiah over the head if he doesn't score, and I do feel there was an element potentially of that against Brighton, more so West Ham, but he did what he needed to do. It kind of the topic of Eddie Nketiah, it kind of makes me mention, bro, Arteta had his press conference. I don't know if you saw, and he didn't criticize Eddie, he bigged him up, but it was the kind of first thing where he spoke about Jesus. He said Jesus is going to be out for months. Now that's very subjective, and he also said the problem is that we only have one. We're going to get onto Mudryk in a second, but do you think Arsenal could look to bring in a striker? Do you think Arsenal would bring in a striker? Would you bring in a striker if you could?
Yeah, it's a really interesting,
obviously with Balogun as well on loan as well, but go on.
Yeah, I feel like the priority has always been that wide forward for them rather than a central guy.
Yeah.
So I don't think, if it was to happen, I don't think it would happen before that wide forward, which obviously looks like it would be Mudryk at the minute. But me personally, I think I've always viewed that midfield as more important. Well, equally important, I'd say. Just I think you see how big the drop off is every time there is rotation, and that was, I mean, clear as day yesterday. I thought for the
Xhaka comes on,
first
we start bagging.
for the
Really, and
first
Elneny looks
hour.
a bit better as well. Really,
That's the thing that like so if we're talking about how that midfield looked or worked, for a better term, I guess, Elneny looked average for the first hour. Very little support from Fabio Vieira because we all know he's a final third guy. He's just going to stay in that high pocket and he's not going to come deep like Erdegaard does to kind of help with that build up. Then on the other side, Lukonga's just giving Elneny no support whatsoever. Then Xhaka comes on and you can see it was, to watch it unfold, it was just like you couldn't really put your finger on what Lukonga wasn't doing at the time. And then Xhaka comes on and you're like, oh, that's what he wasn't doing. So say if the ball's on the right hand side of the pitch, Xhaka comes over to give them another body in that kind
always
of
showing,
area.
just doing the basic
And
midfielders, screening,
it's simple
positioning,
stuff.
everything's amazing from him, man.
Simple stuff, but it makes a big difference.
Amen.
Because then Arsenal can just play through a lot more quickly. So that's where my kind of head is at, rather than thinking, oh, what happens at striker? If your foundations aren't there, then what's the point? That's kind of my that's what my viewpoint is at the minute. And I know that is probably a much more difficult fix than say, let's get a guy who knows how to score.
Yeah, you're right. Still,
and as well, getting the right kind of player in there will be very difficult, I think, if you're trying to think long term as well. So I know my I guess perspective is looking probably at more of the difficult one to try and do, but it just screams at my face every time there's rotation. So that's where I am with it.
no, I'm with you, man. In an ideal world, I'd actually, I'd love to have the best of both worlds in that there's a striker, probably more so, sorry, of a Giroud type that's a bit different to Jesus and Eddie and Nketiah that can operate as more of a focal point. I think every Arsenal fan would like more reinforcements out wide, definitely, to bring off the bench at the very least, like against Newcastle. I'm fully in agreement with you with central midfield. I think since I've started YouTube and had you on, we've kind of always been addressing that area. Big fan of what Granit brings, like what Partey does, but if they're not there, it's a kind of irrelevant. And as we've seen, even though we've been good this season, when one isn't there, you kind of rob the other one. I look at PSV at home, actually, when I went to the game where, Xhaka, when Odegaard and that came on, I can't remember if it was Partey or Xhaka who started, but two of the three came on and it was another dimension. And I think yesterday, obviously, you're playing a compact Oxford United. They're going to give us possession and kind of just muck in. We've got Tomiyasu, who I'm a big fan of. I don't think Holding's a bad player, but they're not as expensive as Saliba and obviously Benjamin White. As you said, Elneny and Lukonga aren't offering anything. So for me, I kind of felt sorry for our final third players because Saka's picking up the ball like he's a right winger, right back, and he's having to try to dance past people. Eddie's having to drop deep and getting kicked. Martinelli and Tierney first half probably look the more likely to make things happen. And Fabio Vieira is probably operating as like a number 6, and I think that comes from what you said in that we're not showing for the ball. To be kind to Elneny and more so Lukonga, I would say, they just haven't got the skill set. And it's not that it's concerning, but you look at our defensive options, you look at our final third players, there's longevity. Not that I'm suggesting Partey and Xhaka haven't got many years left, but there isn't that sort of
age profile.
Exactly. And then the one guy that has it is Lukonga. And again, I back him. I think there's a player in there, but at the end of the day, you've played 30 odd times for Arsenal. You've played 70 odd times for Anderlecht. You turned 24 this year. I remember I actually did a video and I spoke about Arsene Wenger. He kind of said at 23, you've kind of got to be the finished article. Where are you at with Lukonga? Because I don't think he goes on loan. I don't sanction him or Elneny leaving, especially as we haven't got one in, at least until the summer. Where are you at with Lukonga? Like, what's your feelings? Do you still maintain faith in him? Are you beginning to lean towards the loan? Is it psychological? Because I do think he seems a bit of an introvert, and I think confidence will make him look a lot better.
Yeah, it's such a strange one because there is still a lot to fight for Arsenal in this season. So you would hope there is a way to kind of rekindle what we saw, I think, in his first 6 months, which was very encouraging. I remember being at it was actually Eddie Howe's first game in charge of Newcastle at the Emirates.
Yeah, him and Ainsley midfield, isn't it?
And
that's the first one that comes to mind for everyone. Probably Chelsea in pre-season.
Yeah, and he looked really good because he was doing the things that you would expect. I think he was playing probably more as a 6 in those games, and he was shown for the ball. There was times where he was actually taking more responsibility than Partey in those games, if people remember. And I'm not really seeing that. So I'm not sure how you get that confidence back. I mean, I guess it comes down to maybe the discussions going into
Would you say
games
that's
and
in
stuff.
relation to confidence? Would you say that's for himself? Because I personally think Arteta's giving everyone the world of confidence. The players are giving, we've seen Saliba, Gabriel, we've seen a lot of players make mistakes and they've reacted. But I think it's a bit like, I look at Eddie, who ironically they had that scene in the All or Nothing. It's like Eddie, not that Lokonga doesn't believe in himself, but Eddie kind of believes in himself. He seems realistic of his situation. He believes in himself. He obviously listens to Mikel Arteta. I don't know if Lokonga, from what I can see, I don't know him as an individual, believes in himself. So it's like it's like me being on YouTube and you being in The Athletic. If you don't believe you can be a half decent writer or a good writer, then what's your boss going to, or the viewers you make publications for? So I think I think he needs to get back to that, man.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about him as a guy because I don't know him.
Exactly. That's why it's difficult.
Yeah, but I just feel like we've seen glimpses that there is something there. How do we get that back? I literally don't know. But
it's not our
what
job
I would hope is in those games, maybe where Arsenal, because we've seen they're able to control games throughout. Maybe in those games where there is a lot of control, you can throw him into those games where he's not in a side that's kind of mismatched that he's been in before.
We're kind of the bigger
this
team
season.
against a smaller team, just conceding possession.
And just kind of feed your way in that way. In the long term, I'm really not sure what the future holds because, again, we're just kind of been in this kind of Groundhog Day for about 6 months to a year, so it's getting a bit more difficult as even more time kind of passes. But you always hope there is a solution. But yeah, I think he's probably the most difficult situation of the whole squad. But I guess the good thing is that there aren't a lot of those, especially compared to recent seasons.
Exactly, man, and that's why I kind of retain faith in him, because I'll always back him. I think there is a player in him. It's just about harnessing it. And I think when you look at it, as you know, Xhaka, El Nene, Partey, they're probably all 29, 30. They've still got years in them, but they're not going to be here forever. Obviously, as much as they love being at Arsenal, they might want to try new experiences. We need to kind of, not that I'm saying to remove anyone anytime soon, but we need to kind of have their long-term replacements or somewhat kind of replace them before they need replacing. So on one hand, Lokonga's 24 this year. Them lot are in their 30s. You'd imagine, maybe not at the same time, but spots open up. But then I look at it for myself. If I could, which I can't, I'd bring in an 8. I'd bring in a 6. I do want to flirt with the Odegaards, the Zinchenko's, the Fabio Vieiras, the Smith Rowes in that sort of 8 row. In fact, God forbid, if anything happened this season, similar to what we did against Wolves, I'm not too sure for Fabio Vieira, for Lokonga exactly, but I'm more likely to throw one of the more kind of 10s in the team, or Zinchenko playing left back before Lokonga.
Yeah, I'm quite intrigued to see where Emil fits in.
Do you remember Brighton at home last season, where it was Lokonga as the 6 and Odegaard, Smith Rowe either side as the 8s? Probably the right idea, the wrong time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he tried it a few times last year, and yeah, as you say, it just didn't really click. But I feel like Smith Rowe has the attributes to be really effective coming from deep. We all know he can drift inside really nicely, technically unreal, but I know we've spoken about this enough times. He's deceptive in how physical he is.
Yeah.
And I think Arsenal could
Harness that
really benefit from that, having someone who's almost complementing Erdegaard rather than being like the exact same type of
direct
player.
sort of, yeah.
But again, you saw when he came on last night, he's floating around the whole kind of width of the pitch. He's not just staying in one
I thought he scored, bro.
pocket.
You know, I was doing a watch
Did
long. I
he?
thought he scored. I started screaming. I was like, "Yes, we're back!" I couldn't believe the camera did me that dirty. I was like, "Oh my god!" Hopefully, he comes off the bench against Spurs and does something. No, bro.
Fingers
Honestly, like, I thought it was in. Oh man, no, but you're right still, and that's the thing, man, and that's the thing I like about Arteta is that these players are good. How do we take them to being great? You know, Smith Rowe, I think not that he's a forgotten man, but you are kind of forgotten man. You haven't been fit for 6 months. You know, if you was, you could be forgiven for thinking there's a spot for you. Martinelli's kind of flying with it. Odegaard's going from strength to strength. Granit's doing what he's doing, but we need options. And one thing I like about Smith Rowe is that last season, obviously, he dropped double figures for goals and assists, but they weren't always starting. They were like super sub roles. Like he might have been able to do something, I think, like he did last year against Newcastle for us. And I think when you look at, you know, you wish you could wake up and see Gabby Jesus, Reece Nelson, Smith Rowe all fit to go with Mudryk signing for the club. That's another one. Would you make a Reece Nelson? Because, you know, anyone that will listen, he says it's new deal time if Mudryk signs. And obviously with the options we have, is it looking like the beginning of the end, would you say?
I wouldn't say that just yet. I think you
I hope
saw.
not.
I think you saw with Eddie last season. Be patient, and stuff will probably happen. When looking at Reese's situation, what has, I guess, impressed me this season when he's got those chances. You saw sometimes, probably in seasons gone past, he probably gets the ball and thinks a bit too
Thinks a
much.
bit too much about it.
Whereas in those like cameos in the Premier League against Brighton in the Carabao Cup and then
It was
in
a
the
game he scored
mid-season,
2 in as well, and then he got
that was
injured.
Forest.
Yeah, that's where I thought, yep, we're here now. That's his
Yeah,
Eddie and
I
Nketiah
think
moment. We've
he
got another
just
Haaland baby.
he went off instinct a lot more, and I think you saw how confident he was in that moment. The Brighton game where he gets the ball on the halfway line, spins his
Oh yeah,
man, and then drives forward and assists Eddie. I think that's like the perfect example of what people have probably been seeing from him since his under-21s days, and have been waiting to see in kind of senior football. And I don't know if you were at these games where he's come on, but you almost feel like you can hear it when he comes on and when the ball's near him, and the fans kind of get up. They're like
he's a
excited
player
when
that can
he's on the ball.
get you off your ass and watch the
Um,
game. Yeah, he's exciting still. You know,
so yeah, I think hopefully he's able to come back quite sharpish, and then again another good wide option to have for the second half of the season, because when you see how big confidence is for these guys,
like in life,
obviously
yeah.
obviously he wouldn't probably be starting over Bukayo Saka, but still having that option there to call upon when you need him, I think could be invaluable.
What have you made? What do you make of this Mudryk stuff, man? Because again, I think he's the most. I think that's the player I've done the most videos on my YouTube channel. Like we should have an all or nothing on Mudryk. Like whether it's the Instagram stuff he does, this outlet, that outlet, he's signing, he's not signing. Chelsea involved, they're not involved. But it'd be nice to hear someone else just speak about Mudryk, man. So what's your thoughts, man? How much do you know the player? From what you do know, whether it's limited or mad knowledgeable, do you think he adds something to the table for us?
Yeah, in terms of my knowledge of the player, it's just what everyone else has seen, basically. And from, I guess, my conclusion is electric. Just he doesn't
I'd
need
agree.
a lot of time to. It's that same thing we're just talking about with Nelson. He doesn't need time to think about stuff. He just does, and I really like that. Whether it's whether it's receiving the ball and dribbling, receiving the ball and crossing, receiving the ball and having a shot, he seems to know what his next action is before he gets the ball, and that's what I like when I see the clips I've seen of him. In terms of where I stand with it, I'm getting to that point where I'm getting a bit bored. To be fair,
If he's not holding the shirt, then I don't want to know. I'm like that as well, really now, man. I'm fully like that now.
If we're just talking like profile wise, I get it because you have, especially on that left, you've got Martinelli and Smith Rowe. But as we were talking about, you're starting to get players in this squad now who can fulfill different roles, and it's covering Arteta press conferences for the past the past year than the whole kind of period. It seems like versatility is becoming a real buzzword with him.
Yeah.
It seems like
what said Smith Rowe Force 9 the other day again. Don't rule it out, man.
I don't particularly. I'm not particularly of the Smith Rowe Force 9
Neither am
vibe.
I, but it's the gaffer, isn't it?
But you can see it, like if Mudryk was to come in, having that one guy who's a floater across the whole pitch. It was Saka before we kind of moved into this.
Yeah, remember him
evolution
playing
of
left
Arsenal.
sided centre mid in that.
I'm waiting for that to happen again. I won't lie. I want to see it at some point, but I think having those options also, it presents itself to seeing Arsenal not being a Man City 2.0, because honestly, it annoys me so much when people just say this is like Pep Guardiola, because although there are
Arteta's not his own man with his own principles, it's quite
there are
jarring.
obvious kind of influences that he's taken from Arteta. I mean, taken from Guardiola, but it's almost like
Pep took it from him, man. The apprentice always shines the master, man. Forget all of that.
But it's also like people more. It's more people who aren't, I guess, affiliated with Arsenal. They forget that this is an Arsenal team who, again, we're of a similar generation who, when you're looking back at that early Emirates era, what were they doing?
Exactly.
They were popping it around the corner, 1-2s.
These were begging us to sell them Colo Torre and that, mate. We have real heritage around here.
You had number 10s playing wide, Rosicky, Hleb.
We used to beg Wenger not to play guys in the team. Like he would force Wilshere or Ramsey or somebody out wide. And before that, there was many. Man, we have real heritage around here, man.
So you're seeing those themes crop up again. And it's like people are oblivious to that. So that's kind of where I'm seeing the next, those gears that we were talking about earlier.
That's where
you almost want to just build off what's happening now with all those rotations. We talk about Martinelli and Jesus in that kind of left central kind of area, their rotations. You can get that in so many more places, I think.
So many different other players within the squad as well, man. You're whetting my appetite. You're gassing me.
I'm not even saying it like to do that. I'm just saying that's what I hope would happen. I don't know if it will, but if you get that option who is almost like a just an insane electric guy on that left, and it probably opens you up to do a bit more inside, I reckon.
And that's what I like about him, is he's a bit different. Obviously, he'd have to adapt and do what we kind of do as a team, like with Martinelli. And obviously, it kind of extends to Saka and Jesus. But as I think you need a couple players that provoke havoc. I think a lot of people do. I think Saka does it in an elegant way. I think Gabriel Jesus does it in a more conventional way. And I just like Martinelli, it's just organized chaos. Like he won't let you breathe. He'll do the little 1-2s every now and again, but he'll just do madness. And I really think there's gears to go up in Martinelli. So I'm all for Mudryk. We've talking about versatility, and kind of with Eddie and Lokonga talking about rotation option players. We have to do Fabio Vieira a bit of a service, man, and mention him. What do you make of him? Because somebody asked me in December, like out of the players who have barely played, second half of the season players, I said for me, I would like it as a wild card to be Fabio Vieira. I then said Tomiyasu or Tini, because I think, they're kind of forgotten men. As a Sunday League fullback, I have to gas the fullback team. I have to support them, bro.
Yeah, I think with Vieira, I just feel like you almost need to get him in a situation where he's comfortable, rather than throw him out there to fight for his life, because we know, I think we've got enough evidence to see that when those games are a bit more physical, he will struggle. But when you're able to get him into those higher pockets, he thrives, because I think one thing that's been quite consistent with Arteta when he's spoken about him is final third. He always mentions final third.
He does.
When it comes to Vieira. And you saw why against Brentford. What's interesting is he's almost the opposite to Ødegaard, whereas Ødegaard loves to be on the ball, loves to knit play together. Vieira is very different in the fact that he doesn't really want to get too involved in the play, but will still have an impact in those higher areas. So with him, I guess my question going into the second half of the season is, do you continue to use him as that right 8? I don't know.
Probably shift him centrally, but it's kind of needs must, really. I think it's a byproduct of not really having enough wide cover. As you said, like, it's difficult to probably get into those options because you've got Odegaard, who gives us so much defensively and offensively off the ball. Xhaka is Xhaka, Partey is Partey. So unless you're going to move to almost like a Christmas tree sort of formation, it's probably a myth. And then obviously you lose a bit when you have an 8 out wide. He's not going to want to take someone on consistently. But I agree, man. Where are you at with Zinchenko, Tierney? Because I'm Tierney FC. Tierney's always going to have a friend in me, but once you get a taste of what Zinchenko brings to the table, it's difficult to go back. Like, it's like eating McDonald's and then going to a fancy restaurant in Central. It's difficult to eat the same gourmet burger, man. It's like
difficult conversations.
Yeah, man, difficult because Zinchenko, Arteta described him as a 10. We all know he can play as a 10 and out wide. The byproduct of City's depth was obviously him getting a role at left back, but it's just so many dimensions to his game. And shout out to Tierney because he is kind of doing that inverted fullback stuff, but he's actually always just been a fullback, centre half if need be, but he's always been a fullback. Zinchenko's a centre mid, and as much as we kind of spoke about Xhaka's impact off the bench yesterday, I think Zinchenko as well, really and truly.
Well, this is the thing, like it just comes naturally to Zinchenko. That's the big difference. You see at points he's like where you'd think Fabio Vieira should be as the left back.
He's kind of crazy like that, man.
And I just think when everyone's fit, there is an understanding that Zinchenko is going to be the guy. And it's really tough because you see Tierney as someone who really carried Arsenal on his back for a good 3 years.
Amen.
And again, like you say, you can see that he's applying himself in terms of trying to learn that role, but you can also see it's just not as natural to him.
He's just an orthodox fullback, really.
I guess it comes down to are you kind of happy with that for the rest of the season? For me, I am. I think
I'd agree.
As we've all seen from the first half of the year, Zinchenko has had those kind of muscle flare-ups and stuff like that.
Tomiyasu, so you need another left back.
So Tierney is 100% needed in that squad, and I think he still has something to offer Arsenal. I think sometimes he can probably get almost too caught up in trying to mirror what Zinchenko does. I think we all know what Tierney brings. Bring that sometimes.
Kieran Tierney versus Zinchenko, kind of meet each other halfway.
Yeah, you can try and invert a bit more because we know Arteta likes that and we know why he likes that, because it gives them a bit more numbers in midfield and it throws off other teams. But when it is Kieran Tierney playing there, I just think if he does him more, he'd probably be more effective.
I think he needs a 6-foot man up front as well, man. It would be like Robertson. He'll scumbag so many assists with them deliveries into the box, man.
There is that. But yeah, I just feel like there's space for both of them. Whether Also, I don't think he's tried them on at the same time yet
Yeah,
either.
like we haven't really got to see Zinchenko officially in midfield, which
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hope we
So
get to see one day.
I don't know, like, because we spoke about it so much, whether you probably can't really take Xhaka out of that
Yeah,
left
that's the
eight.
thing. Xhaka, rightly so, he can't
So it
be.
makes it even more difficult. But I would flirt with that if I could. But we all know this isn't Football Manager.
Don't remind me of Football Manager. I went out the semi-finals against City. I had to quit that, man. I'm gonna keep replaying that until I win. You gotta do the dirty sometimes. I had enough, man. I've had enough. Semi-finals, so close from the champs. We spent like a billion quid as well. They're calling me a checkbook manager. It's all mad, my guy. But last question. Obviously, you know what games on Sunday, innit? Like
What games on Sunday? No, I'm
yeah,
joking. I'm joking.
the North London Derby. For anyone listening who doesn't have a clue, it's a game that, if any, there's 2 games out of the 38 game calendar that you wouldn't want to lose. Now, we won the first war.
Yep.
Can we win the second? Now, for me, obviously, when you kind of mentioned it at the beginning in relation to our top 4 hopes fading last year, the North London Derby, or specifically at Shite Hart Lane, was a place that we obviously let ourselves down.
Yeah.
We need to be better. We need to be better. And there's a lot of away tests to come. The Etihad, obviously, no one wants to play Newcastle, etc., etc. So I want to see it. Form kind of goes out the window. I know our form's been amazing and theirs has been poor, but where are you at psychologically gearing into that game? I know I'm asking you on Tuesday, and you probably go through a range of emotions until then.
I think, yeah,
Myself,
this is the one where it changes changes from day to day, and then when we get to match day, oof, scary.
it is what it is, isn't it? Yeah.
But
First 10 minutes.
yeah, at the minute, I feel fine. I think what makes me feel that way is what we discussed right at the top of this stream, in terms of them proving on multiple occasions there is more about them than when they went to Selhurst Park last season, when they went to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season. And you saw, I think everyone's probably going to just latch on to the kind of penalty decision and stuff, but you saw very early on in that game, there was a mismatch, which was Son. Actually, it's the other way around. Rob Holding going man for man against Son.
Cedric and Holding, this is why I like talking to you, because they were on something else. But Holding just rattled himself. Cedric didn't know what's going on. I think that game kind of highlighted the need for depth as well, really, which we're trying to go about.
I feel like they're better equipped than they were going into that game. I highly doubt it's going to be the same backline. So
let's hope so, man. You never know what can happen from now till then, but let's hope so.
So I feel like there I'm a bit more comfortable, because you're seeing, when we talk about, say, Erdegaard being braver on the ball, they're braver off the ball as well, in terms of being compact, but not. I think some people may misread the word compact when they hear it, and they just think deep
Defensive.
block.
No.
But being compact in the right areas, you see at the start of the season, they just smother certain areas of the pitch really well.
I think you did that against Brighton in the first half away from home as well. They couldn't get out of it.
So I'd like to see more of the same in that respect. And then obviously we know the themes that have kind of defined the season, in terms of those quick starts, being able to actually understand the demands of a game while you're in it as well.
Exactly.
I think
in-game management for the players as much as Mikel Arteta.
I think that's improved a bit more this season. So I know that can go out the window in a game like this, but from the signs that we've seen throughout the season so far, that's kind of what puts me at ease at the minute. Whether I feel this way tomorrow or on it's Sunday, isn't it? On Sunday, I'm not sure, but yeah, at the minute, that's what kind of puts me at ease.
I'm with you, man. I mean, again, I'm the most confident I've ever been about Arsenal game in, game out. Like the way we're playing, I think we can give everyone a game. What happens in the game, we just have to wait and see. Again, as I said, use the drive and hate from last season that you received because of because of losing. We actually haven't won at White Hart Lane in a hot minute. We've been in good form in difficult away games anyways this season. You know, you look at Wolves to a slight degree, Leeds, who is definitely on the back foot. Fair enough, Crystal Palace didn't do nothing, but we had to turn up and go there in Brentford and stifle these teams, really. So that's all my optimism. Obviously, the form kind of makes me nervous, not with us, but their form's kind of woeful. Even when they're winning, they're it's kind of dodgy wins. So that kind of makes me play into their hands a bit. Again, I would love for Arteta to get one on Conte, because I haven't forgiven Conte for his comments about Arteta should stop complaining, and I want to see some real complaining there, really. So if I had to go for a score, I'm going to go with 2-1 Arsenal. That will probably change to 2-2. What would you go with as well, man?
I'm thinking like a 2-0 or 2-1. Sorry, I don't expect them to keep a clean sheet just because we know what happens.
We're playing 12 players or 13 if you include VAR.
That's all. I didn't say it. I wasn't the one that said it.
I said it, man.
But I feel like go ahead, and then I think if we look at that Newcastle game on just a week ago, that was not an easy game.
No.
And I think the way they dealt with the intensity of that game showed that they can stay present, I think, and still try and play some football.
Stay constant, yeah.
Obviously they were missing like just by an inch of detail in certain moments. But I think they showed, compare that to Newcastle away last season, where Newcastle brought that intensity.
We were just not ready for their energy levels.
They just kind of crumbled. So I think that was almost more of a, I guess, indicator of what is setting my expectations. Because you saw when that heat came to them, there were moments where they were able to play through that pressure. There were moments where it was a bit more difficult for them, but what they did was keep the ball, just keep it moving. So I'm hoping that they're able to kind of be consistent with that in games like this. And I think I'd probably agree with a 2-1, hopefully. Obviously, we don't know what will happen.
Everything crossed, man.
Yeah.
In fact, last question, because I got it up here, and this was actually selfishly, this was the question I wanted to ask you the most. William Saliba of recent, because I know we're big fans. We were tracking him in Marseille. I only asked you because while I think he's done great and he's a quality player, there evidently is moments he looks like a 21-year-old. And then I think prior to the Brighton game, I want to say, I think he made 2 kind of mistakes week in, week out. And that kind of brought me back to last season, because by his own admission, he was saying last February at Marseille, like, my form's taking a tumble. What did you make of those couple of games from William Saliba? And I don't want to say dip, but for want of a better term, slight dip in his performance and what he set already at Arsenal this season.
Yeah, what I got from it was just someone who was hesitant, almost.
Yeah.
Like you could see he wanted to make a decision and then he kind of pulled himself back and then he made the decision.
And then
and that wasn't happening before the World Cup. You could see almost the word I think that would describe him pre-World Cup is composure.
Too much composure for my heart rate. So, when he turns as the last man, I was thinking, "Oh, Saliba, you're great," but my heart got taken.
You could just see someone who was going with their flow. And I think that's what he needs to get back to. Not obviously we're talking about Lokonga in a similar kind of vein, but obviously it's not at that level with Saliba. But I think you just need to get him into that flow again.
Is it a World Cup hangover for you, or not even a hangover? The fact of you ain't really been playing. Not that was. I don't think it's relevant to a degree because no one's kind of been playing, and if anything, he's continued to train at least at high intensity level out there in Qatar at the time.
I'm not sure if I'd put it down to a World Cup hangover. Maybe like because you do have that break of regular football, you need to get to that sharpness level where you're comfortable. But even so, they're split-second decisions. It's not like he's played terribly for a whole game. It's those moments,
flashpoints.
because to be fair to him, he started the Brighton game quite well, I thought.
Yeah, he did.
Defending
He got back
high,
to it.
defending high, recovering well, and then it's just that ball comes over and he doesn't make the decision. So it'd be too. I think talking here is really easy.
100%.
So it'd be too. What's the word? Almost a disservice to say make a better decision because I think we know that in that moment there could be 1,000 things going through his head.
Stick or twist, really.
So I think that what I would say is what makes me feel better about the situation is it's not like a consistent 90-minute thing. And we saw Gabriel earlier in the season had those rash moments in the North London derby at the Emirates. He had that moment where,
and against what was it? Was it Fulham? Where he's
Fulham.
That's not madness, really. But that's my defender, man.
So yeah,
so
you see, like they go through these moments, and I think what helps is they're a pair. They work well together over 90 minutes. You just need to kind of dial in for those split-second moments, which hopefully they've been able to kind of iron out over the past, I guess, week or so. And then we've still obviously got the better part of a week before the derby too. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not too concerned, but obviously it'd be better if those situations weren't happening.
I'm with you, man. I think for a 21-year-old, Saliba's done phenomenal. There has been mistakes from Gabriel and Saliba, and like the whole team, that when you're in form and you're doing well, hasn't been undone or hasn't been punished. Yeah. But I think largely Saliba's been impressive. For me, as you said, composure. You wouldn't know the man's 21 years of age, maybe because of those mistakes, but not that. It's just a case of, as you said, those fine margins, that little bit of focus. Those are the split seconds that win or lose games. And considering that's a new partnership, they've done well. Admittedly, I do think Gabriel gets like shamed and criticized heavily for some things Saliba gets away with. Not that I advocate that. Fair is fair. If you've done well, you've done well. If you've done bad, you've done bad. But the mistakes have been minimal. It's the first half a season for this partnership. And again, as Wenger said, if you play young players, no matter how great they are, they're going to show their age at times. And you need to get through those little blips. And we have actually, really and truly, man. So, yeah, man, shout out Saliba, Gabriel, and hopefully the boys are ready to go for the North London derby. Let them know where they can find you, my guy, man. Not that they don't, Mr. Ablett, but, let them know where they can find you.
Honestly, I'm still a very small fish in a big pond. So
I forget all the humble stuff, man. You're doing great stuff, and it's inspirational, man. I even see, when I first got to know you weren't doing all the Kiddo Taylor Hart stuff with your hair. You're Vichy now. You're Vichy, man. You're Vichy.
No, this is honestly, this just came from lockdown, and I was like, I may as well just grow my hair out again because I hadn't done it since like primary school. So I'm still don't know what I'm doing.
He's soon gonna come onto this with the Louis Vuitton and wash bag like the ballers and the bees.
Oh my god! But where can you find it? Mostly on Twitter at Art de Roché.
Where Mean Games Elite on Twitter, people.
Well, I try not to take myself too seriously. I don't want to be viewed as just like a reporter or anything. I just want to do me, really.
That's what you can do, bro.
I also play games on Twitch sometimes. Football Manager. Also, what did I play? I played Uncharted the other day on PlayStation.
What's the Twitch channel?
I think it's AJ DeRoche.
Everything will be in the description of this video, people. But you heard him say it there.
So, man. Yeah, silly stuff. Nothing to do with Arsenal. But yeah, if people are down, they can show up.
So you know where to follow him, man. And obviously to everybody listening, appreciative of you lot tuned in. My dude, thanks for this conversation. I feel a lot more, I'm not going to say more happier because I'm happier about Arsenal, but it's like, I wish we were kind of playing Spurs in an hour or so because I think, I'm just ready to see Arsenal.
Yeah.
Man. But, yeah, bro. It is what it is, man.
Thanks for having me.
Mine, bro. So if you, again, people, if you're on Twitch, follow on Twitch. Make sure you've hit the like button and you're subscribed. And then, yeah, we'll see you lot soon, man. I'll be in contact with him. So probably in 6 weeks, but we'll get it done, man. Don't worry, people. We're out, man.
He's always just that active and defending.
I think it's like